Black Talk Media Project. Black Talk Radio is new black media for the new millennium.
Rise up, 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 rise up. Showtime. Just lift your eyes up, let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell dwell among all God's people, when those we chose and trusted have become completely corrupted and inherently evil, when the feast that feeds you starves our father's children, when snuff, porn, and pedo forms begin to get top billing, rise up. When famine claims millions, when justice gives blind eyes to billions, when the Lord's anger is no longer feared, if his protection is gone and your enemies are near, if you've seen the seas spill over and the mountains shake, break, and fall, if the moon ever turns blood red and you can't see the sun at all, rise up. No matter if the prize is high.
Peace and welcome to New Abolitionist Radio, a program that seeks to educate, inform, and agitate on the issue of 21st century slavery, hosted by social activist and spoken word poet Max Parthas with New Abolitionist and actionist Johanna Elia and Black Talk Media Project founder Scotty Reed. On this program, we discuss recent news on legalized 21st century slavery and human trafficking, along with projects and people who help combat it. Today is November 9th, 2016. The day after the election day, the day after white nationalist hero Donald Trump won the U.S. presidency, which is the day after my newest granddaughter was born and the day before the last one was born, which was the day after time went backwards. They say America's new 9/11 is 11/9. So what happened on election day as it relates to the abolitionist movement? How is the new presidency going to affect our fight? Do we take a loss or is it a win? What's next? We'll answer all of that and more starting right now. Let's get to it. A rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad is George Stinney Jr., who was executed at age 14 in the killing of two young white girls and has been exonerated as of 2015 in South Carolina, 70 years after he became the youngest person executed in the U.S. Our abolitionist profile this week will be provided by Scotty Reed. Expect all of that and more tonight on New Abolitionist Radio. You can listen to the live stream on Black Talk Radio's YouTube page. If you'd like to share a comment or question, call in and join us toll free at 1-866-510-9025. Once again, I'm Max Parthas. What's up, Miss Scotty? What's up, Your Honor?
Excuse me, Johanna has not joined us yet, as we know how often he's caught up at work. So we're going to have to frequently give out that number in case he calls into the conference line, because you will not be able to queue up from the old conference line while it is there for those who just want to listen only, since so many people had that number and we're making this new transition. That number is open, but if you have a question, what's that number again, Max? I'm still trying to memorize it. 866-510
9025.
9025. Yeah. So if you have a question or comment, it's 866-510, and I just forgot it again, and it's right there. Yeah, 9025.
9025.
So Johanna just joined us in the chat room because, as Max mentioned, we do have a new chat room as well to this conference line. It's uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. I see Johanna is in there, and you could queue up a number of ways and join us on the conference, but give me just a second. Let me do this. Okay, I just already muted. You will have the ability to unmute yourself but as a chat room, we could hold free line. We also have numbers. Again, if you click the link, uberconference.com, Black Talk Radio Network, that's, of course, a slash in there. You will see toll-free numbers for 50 different countries. And if you got a pair of headsets and an internet connection, which obviously you have to listen to this program, then you can also call in from your phone. I'm liking the conference so far. I'm just have to learn how to control it more. But go ahead, Max. We do have Johanna on the line. I think you unmuted him.
Indeed, we do. What's up, Johanna?
Hey, peace. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you. Peace and welcome home, brother.
Right on. So we all good. This is our this the first time, huh?
Yep, first time. We got an interactive chat room going on, stuff like that. Growth is a good thing. It's another clicky for me to figure out how to use. But I got so much to say and there's so little time. So, like I said, let's just get into it. Your new president is the hero of the white nationalist movement, Donald Trump.
Hey, man, all hail the chief. What you gonna do? I will say, I'll say this much. I don't support either one of them. And with this program and with other programs and efforts that I've been involved in over the years, the Unexplainable Black Death Project, working with the Malcolm X grassroots movement to create the original Operation Ghetto Storm report back in 2012. I mean, you get into studying the numbers and studying the names and the families and the people that have been murdered by police over the years, the judicial system and how it has not carried out justice on our behalf in any of these cases. I mean, not just in the 50s and the 60s and back in the Jim Crow and back in the 80s, not just in them times, in the 80s, in the 90s, in the 2000s, people were being massacred in the exact same ways, drugged to death, hung to death, shot to death, beat to death, choked to death, whatever, run over, tased to death, and no indictments and cops walking free and families getting screwed. I mean, all this stuff has been happening under Democratic and Republican candidates. So the things we've been telling you been going on, slavery's gone on under all of them. So I don't understand people's backlash over who got selected. They both gonna keep the empire going.
What I feared happened, though.
Question to ask is, when was the last time we didn't have a white supremacist president?
Exactly.
Even Obama. I mean, like, he just forwarded white supremacist doctrines, and we are still being locked up by the millions.
But it's a lot of mental illness out there. It's a lot of living in denial. There's a lot of Stockholm syndrome. There's a lot of valid I don't know if you call it medical or mental reasons of why people are the way they are. It's the programming, it's the quote unquote education, which is really an indoctrination. So it does not surprise me that millions of people, victims of racism, were crying when the racist Hillary Clinton, probably responsible for directly responsible, her argument, directly responsible for at least tens of thousands of black people who lived in Libya, whether they were Libyans or whether they were Africans. They were being targeted by those Arabs, those racist Arabs. The video evidence is all on YouTube. The WikiLeaks emailed Sidney Blumenthal, who she said, oh, he just a friend. He don't work for government. But he obviously had something role, probably with the CIA, where he's sending you an email saying that these racist, he didn't use these words, but these my words, these racist, rabid dog-like Arabs that we use to overthrow Libya to keep them from creating the gold currency for all of Africa. They targeting civilians and they just murdering people based on skin color. And that's in her email. She did nothing. So, again, man, these people are not getting the correct information about any of these individuals. And something that boggled my mind, somebody asked the question, well, Max, you saw it on Facebook. Now, I'm rarely on Facebook like that, other than in my duties as the platform and radio manager for this station. And of course, we going to push our message out there. But I had put out there that I did my part. I shared an article about black people, Hispanics, and white women not turning out for Hillary Clinton like they did for Obama. And so I said, well, I did my part in making sure people had proper information about Hillary Clinton. I didn't choose those words. I think I throw in Zionist, puppet, rabbit, dog, racist, vicious, criminal, and those kind of words. And but I said I told the truth about her. Just like, and this person gonna come at us like, oh, you helped Donald Trump. Well, guess what? If you knew anything about me, I don't know you. You follow me on social media for some reason, so I would think you value my opinion on these matters, because I don't follow anyone other than other people I know in the movement, but I don't know you. So why are you coming at me like, oh, thanks a lot for helping Donald Trump become president? Right. Hey, I just told the truth. Hey, I tell the truth about Donald Trump. Check this out. The president-elect in December will be in a federal courthouse facing a civil lawsuit, which should also be a criminal trial for raping a 13-year-old or 12-year-old. And he is the co-defendant with Jeffrey Epstein, somebody who's been convicted of sexual trafficking, human trafficking, and good friends with Bill too. So we tell the truth about the whole system. But let me say this and shut up. I knew that I knew how the system was going to react based upon who became selected as the next CEO of USA Inc. And the thing I feared the most happened when I was just going through my emails Wednesday, very busy day for me, but I got a Google alert on CCA and Geo Group, and I'd be darned if they stocks didn't almost go up by 50%. Man, I'm very angry.
That's really the whole, that's our whole thing today. That could basically be the only thing we talk about today. I mean, it's so clear.
There's some good news, Max.
All the stocks jumped off a cliff. That's what it looked like. The stocks were just plummeting, except one.
Yeah,
one was rising by 60% in reaction to the news that Donald Trump would become the new president. And then it leveled off around 40% increase, and that was CCA and Geo Group stock.
Yeah, let me say this, and I'll shut up and let y'all conduct the program, because I'm very, very busy right now. Of course, I'm listening and engineering and doing my job, and I'll chime in where I feel I need to. But I just want to put this out there. There is some good news on the abolitionist front. And cannabis prohibition was abolished in California, as well as a couple of other states. And that's just one less tool the slave catcher has in his war chest to victimize somebody over a natural plant that scientifically has been proven to have medicinal properties, food values, all kind of wonderful values. But so that's good news to report, because as we saw in the states, Washington and Colorado, when they legalized, we saw that the number one thing that they arrest people for and put them in the system, the manufacture, possession, or distribution of cannabis. So now in the largest state in the union, they now have recreational cannabis, man. That might, think about what that's going to do to deplete that prison slave labor that they had going on up in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's big news.
Yeah. It also applies to Florida as well. With them legalizing, if not recreational, definitely medicinal.
It was medicinal. It was medicinal.
And you're looking at a state with nearly 2 million disfranchised people, that couldn't even take part in the vote. So I think that's just obvious, an obvious correlation between, drug charges and drug arrest and whatnot, and trafficking, all this type of thing. So when you decriminalize it, one step, possibly the next step comes, or you got that many more people that are self-medicating, that are getting caught up in the system. I mean, anytime you're near 2 million people that could be eligible voters that aren't even able to go to the polls because of the criminal justice system and prohibition, decriminalizing it even to the first step is a huge step in the direction of slowing that down there as well. So I think it was Nevada, Maine, Massachusetts, Florida, California, was Arizona in there too?
California, Massachusetts, and Nevada legalized in the states. Maine's still too close to count. And I don't see anything about Arizona, but it does say that Arkansas, Florida, Montana, and North Dakota passed ballot measures legalizing medical marijuana.
Medical, yeah. You know what Arizona was? I remember now what Arizona was. Joe Arpaio got ousted. He ain't no more. He's no longer the sheriff of Maricopa County.
Oh, you mean the dude that used to send out the postcards of people living in tents outside in black and white stripes?
Yeah, had them wearing pink too. Had them out in the tents in the middle of the day in 115, 120 degree heat. Yeah, he's a real sadistic bastard. He's finally gone.
Yeah, this is huge. It affects the future. It's not so much right now as the future. The people who would have been arrested and would have been hustled through the system behind a plant, that's not going to happen to them anymore. So it really is a plus sign for the future as far as I'm concerned. And it's only a matter of time for the whole country decriminalizes completely as far as marijuana is concerned, or cannabis, I should say.
Yeah. Big deal, man. A big deal. Also California's victory with cannabis. I guess the other side of the coin being Kamala Harris made it to state senator. So the old slave master herself, when she was in the attorney's office, California State Attorney General's office, saying she didn't know that they were using prison slave labor to put out the wildfires and all of this. She's now the state senator. So, the table has been, it's been shaken up, man. The pieces moved around, and we got to get the lay of the land as quickly as we can and get right back in the fight. That's really how I look at the election, is really just giving all these people an opportunity to engage the enemy that we've been surveilling and intercepting and counteracting and attacking and doing all these different skilled and informed methods of warfare with them. They give us 3 or 4 years to battle with them, and then they make us sit on the sidelines and let all the dumbasses that don't know what's going on get involved and shake up the table. Then we got to go right back to the war and figure out the lay of the land. So.
Yeah, well, the lay of the land, as far as I'm concerned right now, is white supremacy and slavers are not just going to lay down and die. They are going to fight. They will buy presidents, buy congressmen, buy senators. It doesn't matter. They spent $48 million lobbying just between 2002 and 2012. $48 million. It's a $500 billion a year industry, and some would say upwards of over $1 trillion if you count the money that is being taken from families and individuals as well as the government dollars that are being spent. So they're not going to give this up without a fight. They will do anything they can do, and we've been saying that all along. And here's what they've done right now. That's why their stocks went up so quickly. Just last week, the prophet Yohanan was telling us that the private prisons were not worried, that they were telling people that everything is going to be all right. Now, how did they know that? And it was insider information. The people who owned the most stocks weren't selling it. They were keeping it. And now we know why. It's because they knew that their man was going to win somehow.
Yeah. And,
I don't think they knew. I just think they bet. That's sort of like betting. People were betting on Trump. People was betting on
money. They put that million on Trump a couple of weeks ago. You remember?
Yeah.
They didn't give it to Hillary.
In violation of the law, which showed an act of desperation, and we discussed that. So they were doing something in a desperate way at that point that they would violate the law and take the risk, and rather to seek forgiveness than ask permission at that point. So It was down to the wire, and they did what they could to make this happen.
Something else I remember we talked about the 3 different lobbyist groups that the GEO group hired about a month ago. And now that Trump is in office, he's going to build his cabinet primarily off of the recommendations of and hire in several people that are already government lobbyists. Like, he doesn't have connections. It's not like he's a guy that's already in politics and can bring up, from a state level, bring up his aides and bring up his staff. It's not like he's already in Congress and can bring in people he's worked with over the years. And he has no political background. So his only way to establish a cabinet is to take corporate connections, take people that are already active lobbyists of the government, people that are already working for companies like Geo Group, and whoever's private interest wants to get into office, he will talk to their lobbyists and he will sit those people down and decide how he's going to establish a cabinet.
I don't know if people realize just how big a jump this was in their stocks. Like I said, everything else was going off the cliff. Stocks were just dropping. What was it, 800% at one time? But the prison stocks were rising like a skyrocket. When they say soar, that's exactly what they mean. I want to read just a little bit from Bloomberg Markets. It says 2 companies that operate detention facilities in the U.S. are breaking up. Donald Trump's victory in the presidential elections helped shares of Corrections Corporation rise as much as 60% before paring their surge to 34% by 10:14 a.m. In New York, while Geo Group Incorporated was trading 18% higher by the same time. Those moves mean the stocks have recouped some of the losses they registered since August, when the Department of Justice said it would start phasing out privately run jails. Analysts say President Trump would be likely to reverse that policy and see an added windfall to the company stemming from difficulty of implementing his deportation agendas. Man, there's more to that. You can check it out on New Abolitionist Radio on Facebook. But that's what I mean right there, bro. Skyrocketed. And then we find out that we were being bamboozled anyway with their whole we're going to phase out private prison rhetoric, when we found out later that what they intended to do was let the contracts go their expired time. And as we know, these contracts are upwards of 25 years. So they were talking about in 25 years, we'll revisit the contracts with these private prisons and then maybe phase them out. It was just a whole bamboozlement, but it was enough to kill the stocks of the Geo Group and CCA in August 18th, I believe, to kill their stocks by at least 50 to 60% in a single day. But then when people realized what was going on, things started leveling out higher. Now, with a slaver and a white supremacist in charge, the prisons expect a huge windfall.
Right. I look back on it and just remember the momentum that came. You know, I mean, honestly, in retrospect now, I mean, it's just like Bernie Sanders, man. If he wasn't playing ball with these people, if he really was trying to be genuine and trying to do his job and trying to serve, I mean, he just got like an all-time screwed over just from all sides on this thing. But related to private prisons, I'm still trying to figure out what we witnessed as well. And I don't know if maybe the momentum for abolishing private prisons caught them by surprise and it was a legitimate effort. Maybe they felt the grassroots, you know, had built up enough momentum with Black Lives Matter out there, was in the headlines enough. I mean, maybe they just felt they didn't have control of that narrative to the point where feigning injury and taking that stock hit, if in the long term they were just going to rebound and get all that back, plus continue to renew their contracts. I mean, because it threw it off track.
I do think they were injured. I don't think they were faking. I really do think we inflicted a wound on the beast. But this is a war, man. There are battles.
Right.
You win some ground, you lose some ground. You win some ground, you lose some ground. You win that hill, you take that hill, you lose that hill. This is a war, man, and these are just mini battles. And so I'm not surprised that their stock went up because Trump said on the campaign trail, like we've been telling people, he is a slaver. He had nothing but praise for private prisons. He was kind of vague, but he expressed support for he said he thinks they're great. Privatization, right. I think they're great. I think that's great. He ain't really put much thought into the issue, but he is that law and order guy. I will be, oh man, Lord, don't let them appoint David Clark to Attorney General. Please don't let that man become the next Attorney General. Please, 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 please. Man,
that is something worth praying for.
And so I do think we inflicted a wound on them. So like I said on BTR News, as an abolitionist, and I say it as an abolitionist. As an abolitionist, when I woke up on November the 9th, and it was finally determined, 'cause I wasn't staying up all night to see who gonna be the next CEO of USA Inc. He pretty much had it in hand, pretty early. If you ask me, once he hit that 244, I knew it was over for her. So I said that when we wake up, regardless of who's the CEO, we still gonna be living in a system that's practicing slavery, and we are going to have to formulate strategies to push that. If it had been Hillary, then we would have continued to push that Justice is Not for Sale Act 2016, and we would have been holding her to her word. We'd have been producing propaganda with her telling Black Lives Matter out in private prisons, and all those promises and the pressure that was put on her, none was put on the Republican side. I mean, there was some, but not on the level that the Democrats, cause of our movement, man, the new abolitionist movement resonated, even if people don't know they engaged in abolitionism. That's what these people did who just legalized cannabis. They may not have looked at it as an abolitionist activity, but you're going to prevent people from being introduced to slavery because of that. So we was going to live in a racism and white supremacy was not going to end because Hillary Clinton became president. Any right-thinking person should have realized that. So, I'll put it like this. You got a game plan for different opponents, to use a sports analogy. I'm playing the Kings this night, then I'm playing, the Lakers the next night. So I got a different game plan based on a personnel. So based on the Trump administration personnel, now the abolitionists got to formulate a game plan. We've lost some ground, okay? But it ain't over, and I'm not going to be discouraged. I'm actually encouraged because we did inflict a wound on that beast.
I'm not even sure we lost ground, to be honest with you, in the long story. Maybe in the short story, but in the long story, Trump could possibly end up upending the entire system. I mean, he is literally a rogue. He went against his own party members, like literally. Right. So anything is possible at this point. And chaos is a fabulous place to start planting new seeds because chaos allows change. So if he brings chaos, then let him bring it.
Yeah, I'm encouraged too, man. I haven't been, if anything, I was discouraged at the possibility that Hillary was going to get in because I study people and I'm pretty familiar with human nature and just intuition. I could tell what's going on. I've been sitting here watching these, especially black folks. And, when I talk about the oppressed, I mean, I'm considering, primarily black people, obviously everybody that's poor, the mentally ill, the homeless. I mean, people that need help. But a lot of people that have been skating by in the last 8 years under Obama feeling like they've got a benevolent king sitting on the throne that's just going to do whatever they need him to do and everything going to be all right. And meanwhile, they don't know where their children are disappearing to. They don't know why people are getting gunned down in the streets. They don't know what's going on in other countries where in the African diaspora, black skinned people are being bombed every day and being displaced in this refugee crisis that has risen up on the global scale. So, I mean, there's so many things that the average black person that we talking to and trying to get engaged in this fight really hasn't given a damn about for the last 8 years. And they feel justified in not giving a damn about it. And that you can't tell them to care. You can't get them to listen. You can't get them to study, to read. So, we see what happened with that. And Hillary getting in office would have been a continuation of that mentality, I think. So I'm glad Trump's here to shake it up. Let's get to work.
I think that you're right on that point. I was very concerned that she would get in because, see, the problem is people were freaking satisfied with the status quo. They were willing to let the same person who enslaved and killed millions in this country, and as well as millions outside the country, be the president of the United States. They were willing to just let that go and expected us to do the same. And we were very clear from the beginning about how we felt about Hillary Clinton and her past. And like you said about Sanders. Sanders actually addressed the situation first and was very clear about it and put something in writing. But they screwed him over like crazy so they could put Hillary in place. And now they're crying crocodile tears because that didn't work. Well, I would have been very concerned because people would have been continue to have been satisfied with the status quo. Until this whole thing changes around, we're not going to get anything done. So you can't continue to be satisfied with what's been going on. How many more millions of lives do we need to lose? And, you know, they're starting to blame people like me.
Well, Max, check the chat room, bro. It's like we got to tighten up the ship. What I mean by that, let me explain what I mean by that. We got to stick to a strict timetable, bro. So we're like going into the break. I've been playing the music. I guess I didn't have it loud enough and y'all couldn't hear it, but we need to transition.
You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio. We'll be right back after these messages.
Okay.
Black Talk Radio since 2008, providing new black media for the masses.
Peace and welcome back to New Abolitionist Radio. What I was saying earlier is that a lot of people have been pointing fingers at the black community, at the abolitionists, at people who chose not to take a side in this insanity, and saying it's all our fault. Well, let me tell you something. It's really just a matter of math. Whites make up 3/4 of the population, and at least half are racist. Consciously, unconsciously, willingly, hesitantly, it doesn't matter. The math makes that close to 100 million people. Nobody gave these racists anything. Nobody let them do anything. They tapped into only a fraction of their voting base. And I swear, I have never heard the phrase white whatever voters in my entire life as much as I heard it yesterday. They mobilized is what happened. Nobody gave anything away. If you want to point fingers at the white supremacists out there who are celebrating in the streets, walking across bridges in Ku Klux Klan gear and standing at voters' booths with Make America Great Again or put the white back into the White House T-shirts. Blame them. You're going to blame us. I can proudly say that I didn't endorse any devils yesterday.
Yeah, like I said, man, it's just a matter of people not paying attention, people not being aware, people are not really held accountable. You know, we got real lax credit. We got real lax credit ratings for folks to get loans on, you know, all kind of stuff. You got these things are really lax in the society overall. People are just lulled to sleep. There's not really much accountability. It's not really much of a cost to get something, to be given a title of something, to be somebody. You don't have to necessarily do the work. Just put yourself in debt.
Hey, did y'all see your boy Van Jones last night?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I caught him. He was playing his sad violin. It was crazy.
Sad, very sad. Talking about what am I going to tell my children? Like, what are you going to tell your children? Same thing you've been telling them. Keep your head on a swivel. Because it ain't like they safe under Obama. Hell, de Blasio told his son, you're not safe in the streets, and the entire damn NYPD turned their back on him, and they still killing people. So what does he think he going to tell his son, his kids right now? You living behind enemy lines. You could die at any time in this system, and your dad's just out here basically pimping the system to get some money so we can live better than these other people, but really you ain't no safer than nobody else.
Tell them the truth. They live in a country that still practices legalized slavery and human trafficking. Let them grow to fight it.
Yeah. So,
that's what I tell my kids.
I just think people are lulled to sleep, though, is the point I was making, with just such a lax nature of the, you know, if you're willing to accept death at any moment, if you're willing to accept enslavement and perpetual enslavement, nothing on the horizon saying that we're willing to change this one simple word in the 13th Amendment, or I mean, like we saw from the Amendment T election in Colorado, not even willing to change it on a state level. You know, if you're willing to accept these things, then we'll let you be lulled to sleep and feel like life is easy. And with that being the case, people don't remember all of the hundreds and thousands of names of people who have been getting the same treatment that we're getting right now. That's why they're so scared of what's going to happen under Trump. What do you mean what's going to happen under Trump? Same thing happened under Reagan. Same thing happened under Bush. Same thing happened under Bill Clinton. Same thing happened under George Bush Jr. The same thing been happening the last 8 years under Barack Obama is what's going to happen under Donald Trump, unless you get so scared you actually start taking action, because these people chose not to make a candidate for the last 8 years. They thought the game was over. They didn't do nothing else. You couldn't tell them Obama wasn't perfect. You couldn't tell them Obama had any holes in his game. You couldn't tell them anything that we needed, anything we tell them we need to get done. They would tell you how Obama couldn't do that because they wouldn't let him. They would tell you about we crabs in a barrel. They tell you about Willie Lynch. They tell you all these things that meant we couldn't do nothing, including create any kind of candidate, raise up any kind of a person that would stand for us, get any kind of an allegiance or any kind of a communication or engage any candidate and put forward any kind of a concern that we have and say, will you at least look out for us on this? Oh, yeah, I got y'all on that. No problem, man. You vote for me, I got you. We didn't have any horses in the race. And that's what black folks don't seem to understand. We didn't have a horse in the race.
Nope. No horses in the race this time. We will in 2020. Guarantee that. One way or another, we are thinking the long run. And we plan to take this opportunity to use it to make the change that is necessary. You know, one of the things that really bothered me more than anything else about yesterday, even with the victories with the marijuana laws and the disappointments with the Trump presidency, the thing that bothered me the most was Amendment T failing to pass. And just to look at the stats, it boggles the mind. How is it even possible? Just going to read part of this little article here from the Denver Post. Says Amendment T, which was referred to the ballot by unanimous vote of both legislative chambers, would eliminate an 1876 reference that reads, "There shall never be in this state either slavery or involuntary servitude except as a punishment for crime." Now, that's Colorado's constitution right now. With 84% of the projected vote counted, the move to eliminate the term held a slim lead of 1,128,000 plus, or 50.8%, to the opposition's 49.1%. The too close to call race surprised proponents. "Many people do not understand," said Lee McNeil, chairwoman of No Slavery, No Exceptions, the committee that advanced the measure. They were tying it to community service and prison labor, and it has nothing to do with that. It was removing outdated language. We're in 2016. Why would you have slavery in the Constitution? Exactly. Why would you have slavery in your Constitution? And I'm very curious how it is that this thing lost by 1%, 51% of it, because it did lose from what I understand now. 51% of the people voted to keep the terminology of except for punishment as a crime in their Constitution. I mean, did they knowingly do that?
And right there.
Why would anybody do it? It just boggles the mind. Why would you even do that?
That right there, Max.
That you need slavery in your Constitution. And then they present this argument of custodial care. We need to be able to possess those people as property in order to restrict particular rights they would normally have but cannot have as prisoners.
You know, Max, that should scare everyone more than Trump presidency. The very fact that that question was put to voters, millions of people. I don't know how many people voted in what state was that? Colorado, right? Amendment T.
Colorado, we over 2 million people voted.
Yeah, 2 million people voted, and at least half of them, or a little more than half of them, that's about 1 million people, thought it was okay to have references to legalize slavery in their Constitution. So that should scare you more than Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump obviously is a slaver. I bet you in his taxes returns that were never revealed, he probably has investments in the Geo Group and the other real estate, quote unquote, real estate companies. He's a real estate magnate. I wouldn't doubt if he's hiding stuff like that in there. So I'm just saying, man, that scares me more. But at the same time, it gives me hope, because literally this is a glass half full, a glass half empty scenario. You said it didn't pass this time. Okay, so that's why we got to be on our job as abolitionists and fighting for these things, producing propaganda, just like how they get the things they want advanced. We have to learn to, if we're going to participate, we got to be competent. Okay, we got to have competent strategies and what have you. We cannot leave any area neglected. So I am encouraged that 1 million people in Colorado said that, recognized the fact that legalized slavery. I can understand for propaganda reasons why that lady said that this has nothing to do with prison slave labor or anything else. Yes, it do. And those people that voted to keep slavery in place know it did too. And many of them probably have a family member working on a plantation somewhere. Okay, so again, this is exciting times, people. I'm like y'all saying about Donald Trump. Maybe this will make some people finally get off the fence and become abolitionists.
Well, this is not our first time running into the same types of roadblocks. This is about the fourth state that has made an initiative to take this terrible language out of their state constitutions, which allows states ownership of human beings and the ability to work them, to abuse them, to buy, rent, lease, and sell them as if they were lampposts or some kind of property that they own.
Now, the very fact, Max, that it got on the ballot is a small victory. So again, this is a war. This is a war. This is a war. The very fact that it made the ballot was a victory. That was a victory. So ultimately in Colorado, they lost the war, but it ain't over. Well, I ain't going to say they lost the war. They lost a major battle, but they should just regroup their troops and come back at them again.
I don't believe there's 1 million people that voted against it, Scotty. I don't believe that. I think that's a lie. I want to see the ballot. I want to see how this looked on the ballot that people voted on. I want to see what they were reading when they voted for it. If anybody's from Colorado, call into the number here on New Abolitionist Radio. Let me see if I can. The number is 866-510-9025. If you voted in Colorado and you saw this ballot for yourself, call in here and tell me what you saw. We want to hear about it. Because I don't believe 1 million people consciously voted to keep slavery in their constitution. It makes no sense at all. I think it's a scam, and I think it somehow involved the private prison industry finagling with our voting process, or maybe even with people's minds. I'm very curious, and I don't believe that 1 million people exist in Colorado who said, no, we want to keep slavery in the Constitution.
That's a very valid point.
We got to find out what it is we're fighting against in order to fight it. What is preventing us from getting these laws passed? What is preventing this? And it can't possibly be 1% every time you turn around blocking it with a vote.
Right. Well, that's what the abolitionist is here for, is to shine the light in darkness, because they definitely keeping what they've got going on. They're keeping it perpetuating it in the darkness. I mean, just what you just said right there. The sad thing is the voters in the state probably aren't thinking like that, probably don't even realize they were duped. I'm sure the language is confusing and misleading and hiding what the true purpose of it. You know, I'm sure all of that is the case. And it will take a grassroots. It will take the abolitionists. It will take real activists and actionists out here. It will not happen every 4 years, throwing it out there in 4 years, and somebody that ain't gave a damn for the last 3 years, 364 days to go in and figure something out. From this election, that's my main thing I take away. Typically, I'm upset with people because in between every 4 years, they haven't done anything. and everything you told them, they blew you off and talked bad about you and, whatever. But this time we had 8 years of a black president that was supposedly untouchable. So, okay, you had what you wanted. And now in these 8 years, we see you didn't create any candidates. We warned you about that. And then you really wait until election night to act like the candidate that you was going to choose was just magically going to be good because, well, you were going to choose them. So they must be good. And they're only upset about the fact that the person they wanted to choose, they didn't get to put them in place. They would have been perfectly fine if Hillary Clinton had come in and deported 11 million illegals and threw another 2 million blacks in jail and okayed cops to open season on killing. They would have, well, it's better than Trump. They still would have said that's better than Trump because he would have put us in the cotton field. So I don't think these people in Colorado even know what you're saying as far as the language. So I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll get to work on finding that out. And then we'll have to go on a campaign to push that information to that part of the country, and then hopefully be able to connect with other states where it can come up, find out how quickly it can go back on the ballot again, when there's another voting session. I mean, do all the work for them to tee it up so this next time they can go on and knock it out. I mean, we have to get that precedent. Like Scotty said, we got to get a battle victory.
Yeah, we're going to keep striving for this. This is what we mean by what is our battle plan. That's one of them. We failed 4 times. We'll try 4 more times. We'll try a dozen times until we get it through one of these states, and then we'll get another state and another state after that, and then the federal constitution, so we can take this just insulting, horrible language out of our constitutions. It shouldn't be there. It has no business to be there. And the only reason it could possibly have this much opposition is if somebody's protecting an industry, and that industry is slavery and human trafficking. I mean, we've told you about how children are worth $350,000 a year per child per year incarcerated in states like New York. We told you about how they're literally using these prisons as factories, labor factories, with some of the most largest companies in the world today exploiting these prisoners. There's a prison work strike that's going on right now in its 2nd month, and it's still getting no media attention on me whatsoever.
When you say prison strike, I think you don't paint the right picture. Say national prison strike, and maybe even international.
National, the largest in the history of this nation, the largest slavery rebellion in the history of this nation.
There you go, the slave labor strike, because that's what it's about. And they're still there. That was a story I just saw today. I believe it was coming out of Texas, that was saying that the prisons are complicit in censoring communications now. They've cut these people off already with visitations and phone calls and all that, and now they're censoring the mails so they can't pass information about the strike, the progress of the strike, from prisoner to prisoner, family to family, state to state. So, I mean, we are most definitely being engaged. If what we were doing was not a threat to what they're doing, they wouldn't be setting out countermeasures against us.
Yeah, and something's going on here much deeper than what the average person sees, And instead of blaming us, blaming the abolitionists, or blaming the people who chose not to pick a side of evil at all, maybe you should blame your damn self. I mean, you were shocked about this. This completely threw you for a loop. I don't know how many times I heard the word stunned, completely surprised, completely wrong. I was mistaken over and over and over again. It's not the only thing you were mistaken about. You were mistaken when you tried to get Hillary Clinton in. I mean, why would you even do that? It sounded to me like it was really a white feminist movement that was backing Hillary Clinton. And now we hear stuff like this. Yeah, I'm gonna need some peppers to go with those tears. That's what I'm gonna need. They've been out of shape right now. Why? Yeah. Because a white racist male misogynist is running the country? When was that not happening prior to Obama?
Right. And I'm seeing something else that I don't understand, or at least is disappointing me, is that is still an opportunity for this same unfortunate trend that happens after every quote unquote black tragedy that hits us. It's got to be a gender war involved in it some kind of way. After every death, now we get these, For Harriet and the Root and the Griot and the Lipstick Alley or what, all these blogs and hacks or whatever coming out the woodwork to say, well, black men don't need no support because they don't ever support black women. It's happening with this election. I'm seeing all kind of articles coming out and all kind of pundits coming out and talking about how the reason Hillary didn't make it is because black males were absent from the polls and didn't support, because black women, college educated and non-college educated, overwhelmingly voted for Hillary, like in the high 90s again, like they did for Obama.
Well, maybe a bunch of them
for Trump, though.
Well, maybe a bunch of them had felonies and couldn't vote because of the Clinton crime bill, and maybe because they own a prison plantation right now striking against slavery.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking about that myself. I was thinking there may be a number of them that can vote that are aware of what the situation is and didn't want her. This is not some kind of a thing where we could just act like because some people wanted her meant that all of us had to want her. You can't force people to unknow what they know. You can't force people to be looking at this situation and say, okay, well, here's the deal. We in America. We behind enemy lines. We getting killed constantly. We don't have no future, no hope. This is a slave nation that's preying on us. This is a genocide been going on for 400 years. They already got rid of the indigenous people. We right here getting genocided away. But if we got somebody that's going to keep this going, we should vote for her. Or if we got a dude that don't know nothing from nobody and is a complete total ass that has a high likelihood of messing this whole thing up, I mean, you got a lot of people maybe willing to take that risk. I, for one, had no interest in getting her because I know that she's just going to keep it going like it's been going. Why would I fight every day to end it from being the way it is and then say, well, here, I'll let you keep doing what's been doing? No. So hail Trump, man. Let's get in there early and get started as quickly as possible and make sure all the manuals is taken out all the drawers so he don't get no kind of instructions on what to do with nothing. And wait for him to push the wrong buttons and say the wrong things and make the wrong phone calls and show up and do the wrong stuff every opportunity until this whole shit go off the rails. And then we'll see if we can get some progress for the oppressed.
Well, that's how your democracy works. We have documented state by state how people of color are being oppressed in states where they make up a small percentage of the population, yet make up the majority of those being incarcerated on a per 100,000 basis. And because of Senator Sanders, I like to use Vermont as an example.
Well, before you do that, before you jump to
like 95%.
Max, before you jump to Vermont, now you said that minority of people being preyed upon. I don't know if you was talking about the whole country or whatnot, or like that would describe my county. I'm among the minority of melanated people. 80% of the people here are Confederate crackers, and so I'm in the minority. But in some counties like Ferguson, in that little town, they were the majority and still being preyed upon. That's how vicious this system is.
Well, nationwide, we only make up 12.7%. If every single one of us voted, we still wouldn't get our interests as the priorities. So we have to settle for someone else's priorities and hope that they have some kind of compassion for us as minorities. And that doesn't seem to work out too well. We never put our priorities first. And it's hard to get them represented when we're doing this in a democratic fashion. No matter how much you vote, you're not going to get more than 12.7% of the population.
And that 12.7% is going to be heavily skewed by those that are disenfranchised. That's going to, I mean, it's just not going to work out that way. 12.7% is going to represent everything from the babies to the old folks. So you're going to have a huge number of old folks that ain't going to the polls. You're going to have all the babies and children. I mean, people between 18 to 70 is your most likely opportunity. And we know for a fact that for the last 30 years, the rise of the private prison industry, all those people that would have been 18, 30 years ago is still in them ranks. And if you're talking about 2 million in prison now, how many tens of millions have gone through it and have been felony disenfranchised? I would venture to say a 12.7% population of black people, if that is somewhere around 38 to 40 million people, and you break those numbers down, you may have 5 million black males available to vote. You probably have 12 to 15 million black women. I'm just guessing, but those numbers are not going to shake up an election. This election, neither candidate had as many votes as Mitt Romney got as a loser last time. So, I mean, I just don't understand where people get this idea that there was going to be some other outcome that we could have brought to pass if more black folks had voted for Hillary or had not voted independent or had not protested and just not voted all, and all these different eventualities. You're talking about crumbs. You're talking about, even if it's 1 million people nationwide that collectively didn't do what you wanted them to do, it still wasn't going to swing it. I don't believe we had any more than a million. I think 1 million is a huge overestimation, that it was 1 million random black votes out there that could have been culled into some other category. I just don't believe that's the case.
And if Hillary had won, they'd have been out in the streets celebrating right now. And what would they have been celebrating? That the person that put all these millions of people in prison, that cost millions of people their lives, that destroyed tens of millions of futures here in this country, is right back in the office again. And I don't even know if it's constitutionally viable that Bill Clinton can be a first lady. I mean, that's nepotism right there by definition. So what do you do next? Like the Bushes are doing, groom your children to be next so you can sit in the shadows and give the orders? Bill Clinton, was that the plan? I mean, there's got to be some kind of limit to how many members of a single family can sit on the highest office of the land.
That's a good point, Max, and I would say that y'all need to be collecting dirt and storing it away on Chelsea Clinton.
Yeah, that's probably the next step, grooming Chelsea Clinton or Bush to get in there. We were supposed to have both a Bush and a Clinton this term for our elections, but both Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders threw monkey wrenches in those and decided not to play by the rules. You know how they do every election. They get extremists for each party who go out and gather up those on the extreme right and the extreme left. But what they didn't realize was the extreme is the normal nowadays. There's a lot of people out there that believed in Bernie Sanders, just like there's a lot of people out there that believed in Donald Trump. And that Bernie Sanders capitulated. But Trump was like, you know what? I could stand in the middle of the street and shoot somebody dead and they'd still vote for me. Wow.
You know, they did. They did.
I want to give it to you. I'm going to keep it. I'm going to get it all.
Like you said, they did cheat Bernie Sanders, but he showed no self-respect with all these emails coming out. He's the one that gave them the line about, I don't care about the damn emails, or Americans are tired about hearing emails. No, dog. No. So, but they did cheat him and whatnot, but he showed no self-respect whatsoever by going out to campaign for the person who cheated against him. Now, this is, I mean, come on. And then not only him, but Barack Obama and Michelle Obama showed a lack of self-respect as well. This woman had called for him to be assassinated with the same kind of dog whistles Trump blew through the campaign. So again, these people have selective memories. They're victims and they need help.
Indeed. Well, we're coming up on the top of the hour. We're going to take our next break. When we come back, we want you to call in if you're able to, 866-510-9025. Let us know what you think and how you feel on this historic date, November 9th, the day after the election, the day a white nationalist hopefully took over the United States of America. You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio with Scotty Reed, Johanna Nalaya, and Max Parkus on BlackTalkRadioNetwork.com. We will be right back after these messages.
The Black Talk Media Project funds the use of new media technology in efforts to restore independent Black voices to the myriad of issues affecting Afro-descendant people all over the planet. If media can control the minds of the masses, as Malcolm X once said, then you must ask yourself, who is in control of the media targeting the masses of Black people today? Help bring back independence, self-determination, and respect for Black culture in the production of global media by joining the effort to crowdfund new Black media for the new millennium. Visit blacktalkmediaproject.org for more information on how you can invest in public Black radio for the masses.
Welcome back to New Abolitionists Radio. If you're on our new conference call, just press star twice to unmute yourself so you can ask a question or comment. And unless we have any,
they can also hit us up in the chat room, bro. They can hit us up if you don't want to comment on air. Type it in the chat room. I'm watching it.
Indeed, at uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. That's uberconference.com/Black Talk Radio Network. I think you need a LinkedIn account in order to use it, but I'm not sure. I know I had to use my LinkedIn in order to be able to get in on that.
No, you don't have to. But that's one of the choices you'll have. Google Plus, right. LinkedIn, or just use your regular email, or you just call in blind. But if you want to, you're talking about the chat, right? You do got to log in for the chat.
Yeah, through the chat, I think you have to use LinkedIn. But for the conference call, you can just call in blind 866-510-9020. Just press star twice in order to unmute yourself. One of the good things that did come out during this election was from New Mexico, and this has the potential to spread as well. And it's one of the things that we've been asking for as abolitionists that is on our agenda of things to do. New Mexico passed a constitutional amendment that dictates no one should be held in jail simply because of an inability to post bail, putting the state on the vanguard of bail reform. The amendment also gives state judges the ability to hold without bail anyone deemed too dangerous to release. Previously, defendants in New Mexico, as in most states, had a right to bail. New Mexico voters have affirmed that locking someone up simply because they can't afford to purchase their freedom is unjust and a waste of taxpayers' dollars, said Sharice Fanoberdeen, who heads the Pretrial Justice Institute, a bail reform advocacy group. So that's a big win for us as well, because we really have been abused with this bail system, this cash bail system, which is globally illegal except in two nations. That's us and the Philippines. We're the only two countries in the whole world that feel this is legal. This is okay to lock people up, whether they're innocent or guilty. And, we assume they're innocent until proven guilty, and then make them stay in there simply because they're too poor to pay your bails.
Well, the bail issue we know is it remains just ridiculous. I mean, it's amazing to me this country is still one of only two countries on the planet that even uses a system like this. And we see what an impact it has on every community across the nation. So, I mean, when these stories come across, it's just to the point of like, you can't hardly be surprised. And this, again, this all ties in to me to the people are not just ignorant in a vacuum. Yes, the average person is not a paid politician or not a well-studied, activist or scholar of any kind, really. I mean, people work and have to raise their families, and they have a right to want to live and be relatively happy and an expectation of safety and goodwill from their government. I mean, I can get where people are at. I'm not saying everybody got to be, on New Abolitionist Radio being a host or something. But at the same time, the politicians that you got in place, again, Obama, you spent 8 years. You tell us you come from a background of community organizing. We know you're a constitutional scholar, a constitutional professor. We know that you understand the law and the Constitution. We know that we know who you've told us you are. But in 8 years, the only time I've seen any footage of Obama mobilizing any black groups is when he's at the Congressional Black Caucus talking about Cousin Pookie getting up off the couch, and when he's at at HBCUs telling these black men and women that are trying to get on the road to adulthood and be a part of the society to pull up their bootstraps and stop whining and stop crying. I've never heard him in any interview. I've never heard him at any press conference. I've never heard him in any sound bite anywhere ever telling people explicitly what he needs them to do so they can help him get the people in office that will help him get laws passed. I've never heard him talking.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. The midterms.
What the hell?
Yeah, the midterms, for him to have historic numbers turn out for him and to call himself or have a background in community organizing, you'd have think they'd have put a stronger ground game out for the 2010 midterms. And then, he then turned out strong numbers for 2012. But I don't remember hearing him telling black folks, whether it was on TV or going to any of these places that you mentioned, and say, we must get out the vote for 2010. We must get out the vote for 2014. If y'all want me to be able to do this, that, and the other, I need a Congress that will help me get that agenda through. But there was nobody even presenting an agenda. All we, the so-called activists that the system has appointed for us, all they seem to be concerned about was going to the Super Bowl with Obama and having Christmas turkey with Obama in the White House. So, man, please.
And he didn't need any support, as we know. He didn't need support. Yeah, he didn't need support for the global drone war, for invading countries, his foreign policy, for resource theft. I mean, all these things. They didn't need any kind of community support. The Congress didn't battle him on it. So yeah, it's a mess, man.
It is certainly a mess. I was wondering why we people of color tend to vote Democratic generally as a whole. I've been wondering, why is that? It's not like they're doing anything for us or have done anything for us.
But Max, to be fair, there are very few people who actually vote. We're talking about the 12.5%, and Johanna laid out how many of those black men, and I would say increasingly black women, couldn't vote. So it's not the majority of black people that is voting. There is a small percent. I would say actually active in voting is probably, I would just take a stab at maybe 10. No, wait a minute, that's too high. Oh, again, we only talking about 12.5% of the population. Maybe 3%.
47 million people total.
How many total?
47 million African Americans live in the United States.
But I wonder how many voted. Because not that many, high percentage of us engage in that. So when we frame, not we, but the system frames these discussion on their propaganda outlets, they use terms like black people mean every black person or a majority of black people, when a majority of black people don't participate in politics. I'm in the minority in the black community. I do vote. I haven't missed a vote since I joined the military because I thought it was very important to have a say in I thought it was important to watch politics because this man could send me to my death in my 6 years in there. They didn't get to kill me in the Gulf War, but they sure sent me to one. You know what I'm saying? So I'm in that minority. I have my legitimate reasons for voting. Now, it's not the end all be all, but we cited how it worked in California with the cannabis legalization. That's a victory. That's a victory, man. And it only came about by voting. And like you were talking about the Colorado. So that's just a death by 1,000 paper cuts, man. Let them people vote that vote But our problem is that they are casting an uneducated vote. And then they're just voting. You can't just vote every 4 years or even just every 2 years and expect there to be some change. You got to be organizing. You got to be in every people activity area. You got to be coming against the system on many, many fronts. And voting is just one weapon. And it's not a very potent weapon, but it is a weapon. And you can bring some relief to some of the people, but in the war, it's going to take more than voting.
Right.
Well, I was just pondering why, as a general rule, it appears that those who do vote tend to vote Democratic. I was looking at a video of somebody voting the other day, and it was a sister, and she's standing at the booth going, Democrat.
Proxy racist,
Democrat,
man.
Democrat.
They have
just down the line, yeah. Democrat. And we tend to do that. And I was wondering why. And it seems to me, it's not that the Democratic Party is for us, it's that we know the Republican Party has been against us. And that's why we tend to vote for Democrats.
Well, them proxy racists
feel the same way about us.
Them proxy racists play a big role in it too, man, and misguiding the people. Again, I do agree that I don't go too far with calling people victims, because I believe at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own actions. But when you have committed genocide and you are like Malcolm said, only a fool and it would allow his enemy to educate his children. Well, really, there's not a lot of people allowing. They're being told they don't have no choice. Therefore, it's called compensatory. That means if you're not homeschooling, you better have them in somebody's school. And even in homeschooling, it's going to have that European worldview if they going to take the test to get the certificates and stuff that they need. So the people, I don't want to say they have an excuse, but we should be sympathetic. And that is why, brother, we're on this program. And we want to spread this program and other programming like it to counter the programming that they've been giving us since birth. Come on, dog. I'll be 50 years old November the 30th. I was only 46 when I realized that slavery was never abolished. So I can understand. Yeah.
I feel you. My impatience is showing. And that's a relative term, considering how long I've been fighting this. So, my impatience is showing. I just feel like we should be further along than we are right now on a conscious level. We should be more aware of what it is we're participating in and the results of our participation. But apparently that's just not the case, at least not yet. And, I've been hearing people tell me about third parties, too, saying we should vote third party, the Green Party or Libertarian Party. But the only one that I've ever heard use the word slavery was Brother Baraka, who was running as the vice president for the Green Party. But Jill never used the word slavery. And even when Baraka used it, he was only lending it in support of the prison work strike. He wasn't pointing his finger at the system and going, this is slavery. He was saying, I support this prison work strike against slavery. So it was kind of I don't even know how to express it. It was kind of standing back and say, yeah, I'm good with you guys. Go ahead and do that. But as far as a policy, it never entered into the rhetoric. Not at all. There was no plans, no decisions, no paperwork, no nothing coming from the Green Party in regards to ending this system of slavery.
No plank to amend the 13th.
Right, none of that. They're fully aware of it, but they did not take a stand. So why would I even lend my support to somebody who does not see my priorities as their priorities? Why would I do that? Why would I vote against my own interests? Why would I say it's okay for you to think that my life is secondary while you worry more about greenhouse effects and garbage disposal?
And they show you what a lark that concern is, though. I mean, and I'm not saying those things are not important, but just to show you how kind of insignificant those things are. If people are enslaved and we don't even have a working democracy that we can participate in and keep the society moving forward, caring about those other things is not as important. And so you see now Trump is in office and a lot of those things are going right out the window. The climate change argument is completely on the back burner at this point. This man came out and blatantly said he doesn't believe it. He thinks it's a conspiracy theory and people that talk about it are crazy. So now as the elected president, do you think climate change has any place at his table? It is gone. It is done. You're done talking about that. So when you align yourself, and this is one of my concerns that I have with groups like Black Lives Matter and these people that get these big budgets and get this opportunity, as long as they're willing to integrate our baseline root struggle into a much larger canopy of struggle, and then get caught up when that whole thing gets kicked down the road. When we stay focused on slavery, because we've got the God's honest, dead to rights proof of slavery, we've got the evidence of the brutality and the perpetuation of and the profiting and who is profiting off of slavery. You cannot deny what we talk about when we bring up the argument of slavery, and there is no justification for slavery. So if we stick with the slavery argument, we can win. When we incorporate the slavery argument into the LGBTQ argument, you see last night the LGBTQ people was completely silent. There was no showing of any gay people, anybody looking gay, anybody talking about gay, the transgender bathrooms, the children in the schools, the rights of whoever, whatever was completely out the door last night. It was all about white power, and that was the end of the story. So there you see Black Lives Matter has compromised the larger struggle for police brutality, for Black folks being hyper-policed and being mass incarceration, and all these other titles they want to give to the struggle of slavery and incorporate it into the larger canopy of oppression of all people. And we got to come from the margins and bring everybody to the center of the table so we can, the center of the table and the whole damn table and the whole freaking meal is slavery, period. So you see what happens when we let these people take all these other concerns and put us in there, it gets kicked right on down the road.
Doesn't it though? And like I was on Race Treaty last week, and I asked them the question about have they incorporated abolition into their presentation? Because before that, they weren't really aware of slavery and human trafficking prior to our meeting at Chronic 2016 in North Carolina. They weren't really aware of it to the degree that I made them aware that day. But when I listened to them, and I love those brothers for sure. But it was like, we're going right back to our original agenda. We're going to do what we're doing and fight white supremacy. And white supremacy is the thing that we got to destroy. But you can't prosecute somebody for white supremacy. That's not against the law internationally. So it's really not a footing that we can hold on to and use in order to defeat them. But slavery is illegal all over the world, and we can prove that the U.S. is practicing slavery and human trafficking. And it's not just the U.S. This has gone global.
It's illegal all over.
That can unify us all.
It's illegal all over the world except here. And Australia, right. Places like Australia, they're allies, European nations. And even when you look at each individual European nation like Australia, do you think it's filled with a bunch of descendants of criminals who was put out of the UK? No, it's full of Aboriginal melanated Black folks. It's the same system. The same system. You even look at Brazil, the most populous, and we reported over the years how they're trying to get their tentacles into Brazil, the for-profit prison. They did already.
They opened their first private prison last year, converted one of Brazil's notorious prisons into a private prison. And they had a huge bidding war over which company would own the prisons and operate the prisons out of Brazil.
Now, I understand the concept of what people call white supremacy, but some people also, the masses, uneducated, unspiritual, just really not really critically thinking about the power of words and words speak. And when you call people a white supremacist, man, you think I'm finna call one of these crackers live up in this trailer back here with rats or whatever on food stamps. I see them all. Yeah, I see them at the EBT store, can't read, at the store with their EBT cards, all the stereotypes that they use for black folks. And even black folks, proxy racists, will get paid lots of money to come up with a little rap song. I got my EBT, y'all remember that crap? But I see these white people like that every day. But here's the difference. I don't look down on them. I don't demonize them. I don't demonize poor people. But I'm not going to say that they're in a supreme position. That just defies logic, okay? And it also ignores our participation in it. I got to believe that he's a white supremacist to participate. You know what I'm saying? That he ain't no white supremacist. Now, we ain't talking about Donald Trump. Now, Donald Trump got money, he got power, and he white. He got real white power. These crackers, the only thing that they had was the power of their collective, and they organized the vote. So why do we say the vote don't matter when it come to us, but it dang sure matter to these crackers and other groups when they mobilize in the correct way? I think like Marcus Garvey did say, our problem is disorganization. Now, I was listening to some black radio programs earlier today, and they were talking about and it was good suggestions about grassroots movement. I actually got an email today from the NAACP chapter president of Charlotte telling me about a program that they're starting. So they're starting at the grassroots level, and that's good. But some of the people I heard were talking about, well, we need a list of demands, and we need to come together and this and that and come up with, And then I was sitting there thinking, as I'm listening, come to the abolitionist movement, lead the Democratic Party. Don't fall for the Republicans. They can talk about Lincoln and that being the party that freed the slaves, but we know that's a lie. Okay, all we had to do is read the document. And so come be an abolitionist. If you want to be under a big tent party, white supremacy is a symptom. What they call the system of racism, white supremacy, is a symptom of slavery, and we got the documents to prove it. All you got to do is go to the 16, I can't remember the exact years, but it's in the 1600 Virginia slave codes. It's the first place, and it could be earlier, but that's the first place I saw white supremacy legislated. How was it legislated? It talked about the conduct of the slave or the code for the slaves, but it also talked about free black people. See, I read enough and got enough knowledge and insight into the past that I don't go around thinking I'm a descendant. Everyone's a descendant of enslaved Africans if they melanated. So what they did to those free black people was take away their gun rights, which was their means to protect themselves. Even said they had no stand your ground. If a white man punched you, you couldn't punch him back. This was legislated, codified into law. And that's one thing about these type of people. They put everything, they tell you what they gonna do. They just that blatant and what's the proper word? Arrogant. They just they're like Donald Trump, man. He's the perfect representation of the system. And so that's white supremacy was legislated as part of the slave codes. So yeah, it's good to treat symptoms with the best cures that you can find. It may not cure the disease, but it'll treat a symptom. So yeah, you do, need to address the symptoms to diagnose the problem. But in the 4 years that I've been on this program with these brothers and some of the sisters that were part of the early years, I've diagnosed the problem as being slavery. I'm sorry for going on that rant.
No, you're right. And this is an opportunity for us. As you said, we need a new platform. We need an abolitionist platform, not a green, not a libertarian. We need to make the end of slavery our primary goal and work outwards from there. So we need an abolitionist platform. And I know that there's an article that just came out from columnist for the Black Agenda Report, Margaret Kimberly, who said that the Democrats were not our party, but the party that thought they owned us. Their rejection must be complete, and blame must be laid squarely at their feet for raising those chickens that have come home to roost. Now, we saw how they conducted themselves, the DNC, the WikiLeaks, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and how she manipulated Senator Sanders, how they chose their candidate in advance and eliminated everyone else, how they tried to pick Republican opponents that they would raise up. We saw all of that. These people are not for us, so we need our own. We need to be willing to step into political no man's land and start from scratch to build a movement for us, a political movement. So 2020 is our plan. And, you know, the idea, because it's been presented to me over the years many times, the idea of me personally running for president is not something I've discarded completely. First, I'd have to clean up myself. I want to get some things done. And if I can get those things done, I might just consider doing that if no one else is available. But we're going to get us an abolitionist platform for 2020, one way or another. And we've got to get away from these white racist supremacist organizations and parties that claim to be giving us a seat at the table, but are only giving us scraps from the tables.
Well, you brothers have said a mouthful. Have definitely, drilled down to the roots of what the situation really is. And I mean, again, that's something why, as we continue to roll on year after year on this program, you know, I remain thankful that you all invited me to be a part of it. And I know for a fact that this is really the tip of the sword. These conversations that we have and the research that we're doing and week in, week out, bringing this information to light, this is where the state of the art, so to speak, this is where it's happening. Because we know that these experts are not promoting this conversation, are not propelling us toward, resolution through their own research. I sat and watched Twitter last night. I sat and watched the New Abolitionist Radio Twitter feed last night. And you would have thought that damn nuclear bombs had been dropped on us or something. You would have thought that some foreign military was marching, through our cities and just sacking us and taking us and raping us and killing us. I mean, every last one. I mean, I follow all of these people. I find their Twitter accounts and follow all of them. We got thousands of people that the page follows. And I see their feed, and it's just doom and gloom and tears and crying and sadness and, oh, I'm just going to have a tantrum. I'm so mad. I'm so hurt. Y'all didn't vote for Hillary. I did not see among these people, and I'm talking about black, I'm talking about white, liberal, I'm talking about professors, I'm talking about activists, I'm talking about people that are activists in the prison reform movement, as well as people that are out here organizing against police brutality. I'm talking about people that are doing very specific things like bail reform. I'm talking about, like I said, PhDs, black, white, Latino, women, men, young, old. I didn't see anybody with an abolitionist message for all night last night. Nothing but a bunch of damn tears and sadness. None of these people had a conversation like what we've just had here tonight. None of these people had anything even approaching the basic logical, put together the pieces. The system is made this way. This is how you can use the system for your own benefit. This is what we should have done. This is what we need to do next time. Everybody's bitching and pissing and moaning that Hillary didn't get in there. What's we gonna do now? Trump gonna make us pick cotton. It's freaking sickening.
It is sickening. While the election was going on, my daughter was in the hospital giving birth. My other daughter was in the hospital getting its blood transfusion. All of this was happening simultaneously, and she had a healthy little baby girl.
Congratulations.
Right on. Congratulations, man.
She just got home today. But while I was in the hospital, I was standing outside with a gentleman, a tall white guy from Texas. And we were talking, and he said, so what you doing here? And I told him, and we started talking about abolition. He said, man, I spent 8 years in prison.
Hold up, bro. Hold up, bro. We're getting a lot of feedback. Give me just a second. Go ahead.
Okay. So I was at the hospital talking to this tall white gentleman, and it got around to the subject of abolition while we were both having a cigarette. And he said, I spent 8 years in a Texas prison picking cotton every day for nothing. Says, I hit a man over the head with a bottle, and they gave me 8 years for it. And from the day I started till the day I left, I picked cotton in Texas for free. And this is a white guy picking cotton in Texas for free as a slave for 8 straight years. that I just randomly met while I was at the hospital. And while I was at the hospital, we had a blackout there. I've never seen that happen either, where a hospital lost its lights. But it was just seemed ominous to me. So many signs and symbols occurring at that point. Well, we're coming up on our next break. When we come back on the other side, we got our abolitionist in profile. We've also got our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad, which will be special this week. I want to share some poetry with you. You're listening to New Abolitionist Radio on BlackTalkRadioNetwork.com. We'll be right back after these messages.
Campaign 2016 is finally over, and the Electoral College has chosen Donald J. Trump as the next CEO of USA Inc. In fact, you could say that Donald Trump won the presidency the day the DNC and Clinton campaign decided to get their media contacts to promote Donald Trump and help him along the way to winning the Republican nomination with 24/7 coverage of his campaign. You could say that Donald Trump won the presidency when the DNC and the Clinton campaign decided they would cheat Senator Bernie Sanders out of a fair shot at the Democratic nomination, despite current polls of the time showing Sanders crushing Trump in a head-to-head matchup, whereas a much closer race was predicted between Trump and Clinton. You could say that Donald Trump won the presidency when the Democratic Party underhandedly nominated the first person to run for president under an active criminal investigation because of the gross negligence involved in the handling of classified state secrets by using an unapproved non-governmental email system. Despite the underhanded, unethical, and possibly criminal tactics of Hillary Clinton, her campaign, and the DNC, the most uncodified racist politician in modern times is now the president-elect, and Donald Trump will be the next CEO of USA Inc. There is no one to blame for this election but Hillary Clinton, her pantsuited minions, and the unethical DNC for the historic but not unpredictable loss. For all Trump's failings, at least another member of the Clinton or Bush crime families won't be head of the corporation known as USA Inc. This has been Scotty Reed with your Black Talk Radio weekly commentary. Join me for regular broadcasts on BlackTalkRadioNetwork.com. The Black Talk Radio Network is made possible in part with help from the Black Talk Media Project, a North Carolina-based nonprofit engaged in the production and distribution of independent digital black media. Find out more by going to blacktalkradionetwork.com or blacktalkmediaproject.org and look for the menu tab, Crowdfunding Black Media. Black Talk Media Project, helping to provide you with new black media for the new millennium. You are tuned in to Black Talk Radio, the new black media for the new millennium.
Peace and welcome back to New Abolitionist Radio. A couple of things I wanted to say before we got into our final few segments. One, there's a Newark conference coming up for Black Americans gathering together in Newark. Some of our professionals and elites and intellectuals are all gathering there to come up with solutions for Black America and what we need to do. Well, if abolition isn't on that agenda, then you all have a problem. It's like, for real. You have a problem. because you aren't even considering the idea that slavery is legal and happening to our people right now. And more often than not, I don't hear anybody talk about freeing anybody. There's millions of people that are either incarcerated or being under supervision, many of them people of color, but yet we are very silent when it comes to the idea that maybe they need to be let go. Maybe they're innocent. Maybe we need to look for some relief for them. I'd also like to point out that, for instance, just recently there was an article that came out where, I'll pull it up right here, where I forget where it's from, but they were calling Trump monster and devil and all these different things. Well, you can label people. You can say those are white racist supremacists. Those are devils. Those are demons. But you can't prosecute somebody for that. You need something you can prosecute them for, something you can hold them accountable for, something that the whole world can come together and say, that's illegal and we need to stop it right now. And that thing is slavery and human trafficking, one of the most well-documented instances this nation has ever seen, happening right now. So I think it's very important that you allow an abolitionist conversation to begin in your circles, A, and B, that you consider our argument and maybe change your mind along the way. Anything you guys want to cover or say? Anything you guys want to cover or say before the other segments?
I just hope people hear what you're saying, man. I haven't heard one thing on this program every week that I'm here with y'all. I haven't heard one thing on this program that is outlandish or out of line or some kind of way out of touch, dishonest, hiding anything. I mean, there's no games being played here, people. This is the God's honest truth, about as raw as you can get it. I would hope you hear this and listen to it, study it, listen to it again and again, share it, and spread the word, and start today. Start now while it hurts so bad, while you're so excited about Trump, while you're thinking of the possibilities of the pain and the suffering that's coming. Get out ahead of the dragon then. If you're so worried about Trump, the way you can prove it is getting your head in the game, and let's mobilize. Let's strategize. We can do it. It's not like it can't be done. We can do it, but we're already doing it, and you're doing it if you're listening to this. Your job is what our job is, to reach out and get as many other people as you can and compel them that you know what you're talking about. We know what we're talking about. Get them to join the fight. Let's mobilize and turn this thing around. All that whining and pissing and moaning ain't going to do a damn thing.
You know, Reverend Barber here in North Carolina, the head of the state chapter of the NAACP, and I have my differences in agreement on what the priorities of black people are, but there is no doubt that he knows who the enemy is. I know who the enemy is, and the policies that's harming a whole lot of people. And before we get to our abolitionists, but abolitionism means coalition building, and he's done a good job at doing that and building coalition and making people see that something is wrong. And it's not that the things that he's pointing out to them aren't wrong, because in fact they are, but it's like Johanna was saying, I guess I'm, just summing it up, is they never get around to saying what exactly it is, what all of these symptoms are. I saw him up in Harney County. I think it's Harney County, North Carolina. It's to the northeast of where I am. And they had white families and black families came to this press conference together. Both the families victims of the slave catchers. The sheriff department described as a gang. One of the white guy was in his own trailer, in his trailer home, and they was at the wrong home and shot him and killed him in his own home. It was caught on video, and again, we can't ignore our own participation in it. We can make excuses for it, and some of the excuses may be valid because nobody's treating their disease. But at the end of the day, I was always told as a young man that right from wrong, Scotty. Don't sit up here and play like you know that it was not wrong for you to do whatever it is you did. You know what I'm saying? And so it's not like these people, these proxy racists don't know what they're doing is wrong. But this proxy racist slave catcher in the jail, this dude already like got on the restraint vest that they put on you. I forget what they call them, the straight jacket. But then gonna tase the dude, man. After they had beat him, then was tasing him. It was like literally this proxy was going out his way to show the other slave catchers he can be just as brutal, just as emotionless, except for anger at the victim and the slave. That's why he's beating him and tasing him, and this man died. So these families showed up together, and they talked about police brutality, they talked about civil rights violations, and they talked about a lot of things that was wrong in Harney County, but not once did Reverend Barber point to slavery or the fact that North Carolina, like unlike many other states, has abolished slavery. We have involuntary servitude as punishment for crime, but that's a section to itself. Number one, it says slavery shall be abolished, period, just simple language. We're one of the few states that actually abolished it, but they just made it so that if you do end up in prison, we gonna make you work. So really, he isn't using the legal argument or getting the NAACP Legal Defense Fund to come here in North Carolina and challenge these people in court that they're practicing slavery when they allow AT&T and other corporations and little small businesses to pay these people slave wages. They should be getting market rate because slavery has been abolished in this state. Now, you can make them work according to the Constitution, but you can't pay them as a slave because the slavery's been abolished. So they got to at least get state minimum wage. You understand where I'm coming from? It's all about pointing out the symptoms, but never getting to pointing out the doggone disease. I
have personally met Reverend Barber. He and I both spoke together.
And Max, let me just close out, and I'm gonna shut up, Max. Yeah. But let me say this. And then he was out there pimping for Hillary Clinton on that stage.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Is that it, Scott?
Yes, sir. I'm done for the night. I do have my abolitionists ready.
I was just saying that I met Reverend Barber personally. I gave, along with Muhaddin Debaha, a slavery abolitionist workshop at the Days of Grace event in Charleston, South Carolina, which he attended. And on the same day, we both spoke there. And I sat there and watched this man speak for 45 minutes. And not once did he address any of these concerns. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever heard. He knows history almost like it's the back of his hand. And he talked about unification and cross-cultural unification and bringing whites and blacks together, but he never addressed any of these issues. And immediately after he finished speaking, Muhaddin Debaha got up to the very same podium and went in about the 13th Amendment. He immediately said, "You're right." But you just spent 40 minutes up there talking and you never said a word about it.
Because he didn't know. He didn't know. They're not being confronted. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But again, this is why we say all these people with PhDs, doctorates from this university or that university. Again, I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody because it was only 4 years ago that I realized that. So again, but I have been tweeting at them, getting at them, sending emails, whatnot. Never could get an interview with them, but I'm pushing. They got a little Facebook page for my Gaston County NAACP. You don't think I'd be posting on their page? I'm not on Facebook like that no more.
Scotty. I know you be killing them.
So I'm not on there like that anymore, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic or anything like that. And I would hope that if any members of the NAACP here in North Carolina, which is in fact has the largest national membership of the NAACP, y'all paying money, hire some attorneys and challenge whoever. I don't care if it's Roy Cooper, or Pat McCrory, since the election won't be decided until November the 18th. They said it was so razor thin. So if it is a Republican or a Democrat, it don't matter. You need to sue the state of North Carolina for practicing slavery and name all the corporations that's employing prisoners as slave labor, name them as co-defendants in the lawsuit, and pay these people reparations. And moving forward, if you're gonna make them work, you gonna pay them what that work is worth. You know, what you would pay somebody on the outside. So, yeah, that's my. If you're listening or listen to this later,
the world for Reverend Barber, but as I said, I see it as what is normal. This is how people think. It's not even a part of their conversation. It's in the back of their head. As you said, they just haven't realized yet. But then when you say while the man is talking, "You're right," it tells me clearly that you already knew, but it just wasn't a priority to you. And now, hopefully, we're waking people up like that. I applaud all his efforts. I just wish that he really tapped into that knowledge that he is so well possessed of and recognized slavery when he sees it. Well, we are running into our 15-minute left. I guess 10 of that actually is what we have left. So let's get into these abolitionists in profile and our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad. I've got a special thing I want to share with everybody today. It's a poem. Is that okay with you, Scotty?
Yes, that is perfectly fine with me. So I didn't mean to be taking up the time. We do have Lotus Place coming up at 10. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on proud black woman that if she had ever ran for president, she would have got my vote. Okay, so but you know, people want to talk about Susan B. Anthony or who was they laying stickers on her grave the other night?
Susan B. Anthony.
Susan B. Anthony. I don't. Was she an abolitionist? I don't think so.
Yes,
she was.
She was for women's suffrage, though. Really kind of like what we see now, just another one of these people that takes the root issue and puts it into the larger canopy of everybody's struggle. So
okay.
Everything becomes the new black.
All right. Okay, let me go into my abolitionists. Sarah Parker Redmond, born into a family of abolitionists who were also active in the Underground Railroad, Sarah Parker Redmond gave her first abolitionist speech at the age of 16. This was a radical action at the time, not just because she was young and black, but also because she was a woman. Redmond was a member of the Salem Female Anti-Slavery Society, in addition to other anti-slavery organizations. When Redmond was 27, she refused to accept segregated seating at an event at Boston's Howard Athenaeum. While being forcibly removed, Redmond was pushed down a flight of stairs by a police officer. Police brutality, slave catching, same thing. After taking the city of Boston to court, she was awarded a settlement of $500 in a case that drew national attention. Redmond traveled across the country as an abolitionist lecturer and also to England. She eventually moved to Italy and became a physician. You can read more about her at the National Women's History Museum. Sarah Redmond, born 1826, transitioned on 1894, and New Abolitionist Radio salutes you, Sarah Redmond.
Salute. Started young, too. Well, there you have our abolitionists in profile. We did things a little backwards today. It's all right. So I'll show we can do it how we want to do it. Our next segment is going to be our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad. I want to keep it very simple and share a poem with you about this young gentleman. Our rider of the 21st Century Underground Railroad today is an African-American boy by the name of George Stinney Jr., who was executed at 14 in the killing of 2 young white girls, he has been exonerated in South Carolina as of 2015, 70 years after he became the youngest person ever executed in the U.S. in the 1900s. A judge ruled he was denied due process. Scotty, I have a poem on New Abolitionist Radio and also on our community network posting board about George Stinney that I'd like to share with our audience. If you could pull that up, possibly, you can get it from either page and cue it up. We'll share George's story today in the form of poetry.
Oh, so this is an audio file that I'm playing. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Continue to talk while I get there, Max.
Well, as I said, this is the story of George Junius Stinney Jr., and it's a sad story of a 14-year-old boy's execution. He was executed by racist America. This is the history that we come back from, and today we're honoring and remembering this young teenage boy who was assassinated by racist white supremacists in South Carolina. And as of 2015, he has been exonerated and his name finally cleared long after his death, 70 years to be precise.
And you say, okay, I found it, Max. In the future, you can also post that in the chat room for your producer so he can get to it quick.
All right. Well, today's my first day in this chat room.
That's why I'm saying it.
Work on it next time. There you go.
Yeah, another benefit.
I'm sorry about that, Scott.
Oh, no need to apologize. Again, we just started
You're
it.
You're listening to Ill Poet Society.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. On March 23rd, 1944 in Alcaloo, South Carolina, these 2 white girls was riding bikes by the tracks that separate the whites and blacks. They was looking for maypop flowers, but within hours they came up missing. Wishing that I had never told the sheriff that I had seen them, the white girls' bodies turned up the next day in a ditch not too far from where I stay. I was even part of the search to find them, but I found myself being blamed for the murder of Betty June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames, ages 11 and 8. I began to panic as the white folks' rage raced at a pace too swift for me to even contemplate getting someplace safe. And before I could even count to 5, I heard somebody say the nigger boy was the last one to see him alive. I wanted to run, but my feet couldn't move. So I couldn't run, and there was no point at this point because I was quickly surrounded by a white mob with guns. I resigned myself to the fact that I was going to be lynched that very instant, but in that same instant, the sheriff grabbed me and took me to jail. My name is George Junius Stinney Jr., and I'm being arrested for the killing of Betty June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames, ages 11 and 8. The mob followed us all the way to the jail. Meanwhile, I'm crying for my life and wanted to see my mother, cause I wasn't guilty of nothing but being in the wrong place at the wrong time while being the wrong color. Small for my age, I was slightly built, but the interrogation proceedings began with a bunch of questions centered around the presumption of my guilt. You see, the good old boy reasoning wouldn't allow them to realize that at 5'1", 95 pounds, there was no way I could wrestle both girls to the ground, somehow managed to crush the skull of one while simultaneously subduing the other, and transporting both bodies away from the scene in broad daylight without being seen. But the resolve of the sheriff could not be understated because he decided he was leaving that room with a confession even if he had to fabricate it. He offered me ice cream and said that I could go home and he'd forget it if I just admitted it. Now after hours of questioning with fear, exhaustion, and the naivete of my age combining to compromise my judgment, I admitted being the perpetrator of the incident and in that very instant relinquished my innocence. The sheriff left the room and I heard him say he just confessed that he was after sex. The little nigger boy just put the noose around his own neck. Best bet we get him to Charleston and out of sight. The lynch mob won't let the nigga survive the night. My name is George Junius Stinney Jr., and I'm being charged with the killing of Betty June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames, ages 11 and 8. The next morning I was sitting in my cell and I heard an officer tell another that my father had lost his job, and he and my family had left town the previous night in fear of their lives. I hadn't signed anything and no one talked to me about an attorney, but the jury selection began at 10, ended around 12 for the trial itself to start at 2:30. I couldn't do no bargaining and I wasn't in a position to, and that's probably how my defense attorney ended up being the county tax commissioner. Now blacks were not allowed in the courtroom, so you know there were none on the jury. Quick, fast, and in a hurry with no witnesses, transcripts, written confession, or evidence. After 10 minutes I was sentenced to death with no hesitance. My name is George Junius Stinney Jr., and I have just been convicted of the double homicide of Betty June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames, ages 11 and 8. By the time June 16th came, I resigned myself to the fact that I was going to die and convinced myself that I was not going to give them white folks the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Of this crime, I'm innocent. I done said it from the beginning, and my contention is not diminished one bit by your bigoted justice system or a death sentence from an all-white jury that deliberated my innocence for a whole of 10 minutes. I grabbed my Bible, and the guards walked me down the hall. A door at the end of the hall is all I saw. I walked in the room and handed the attendant my Bible and took a seat. But I was so small, the straps kept falling off and sliding down around my feet. The attendant looked at me and froze. I was too short to reach the face mask and electrodes. He took a second look and sat me on top of a stack of books. He stretched the electrodes to the limit to reach my head and covered my face with the mask is what he did, all of which was still too big. Then he pulled the switch. My body convulsed and twitched so much that my head came from under the bonnet, exposing my smoking nasal cavity and sizzling vomit. After 4 minutes, he turned off the power and my head lay tilted, with a sunken face, singed hair, and an eye missing. I'm sharing this with you so I'm not forgotten and the justice system is held accountable and in shame. Even though I may be long gone, don't give up trying to clear my name. My name is George Junior Stinney Jr., and I was executed for the double homicide of Betty June Binnicker and Mary Emma Thames, ages 11 and 8. And to this day, at 14, the youngest ever to be executed in the United States.
Salute, Brother George Stinney Jr.
Man, salute a young brother.
I played that to remind people that this is new to you. This ain't new to us. We've been dealing with this for a long time. A lot of the people who signed into law the 1994 crime bill from the black political structure were alive when this happened. Think about that.
Well, we got just a few minutes. We actually a little bit over, so I'm just going to give my final comments is that the problem is slavery, and it remains, and we've had some losses, but we've had some gains. So, hey, Max, I need to write that down, huh?
Sound like a poet.
There we go. Hey, but it should be clear to everyone what the problem is. The problem is slavery. So as I heard the frustration of black people and them expressing their tears, and I'm just looking at them all pitiful because I feel for them because I once was part of this same system or bought into it mentally like they are, and they just haven't given up on it yet. And they still have faith and hope in people who aren't humans but are demons. And I'm not talking about a skin color either, but I'm talking about their demonic activity. It has to be something demonic about wanting to enslave and take away another individual's freedom and liberty. It's just insane. So people, come join the abolitionist movement, the new abolitionist movement. The message, the movement, the struggle is the same, going back 500 years or however long, going back in the 1600s, 1500s that they've been enslaving people on this continent. It's time to put it to an end, 21st century, become a new abolitionist.
Word.
Hey, peace to the abolitionists, man. Peace to the abolitionists. And death to these people that call themselves our oppressors, the people that align with these oppressors. I mean, we see the last 8 years, people said just about anything they wanted to, made threats however they wanted to, talk bad about the president, totally disregarded the administration, the United States government itself, all of its agencies and investigations and reports, and everybody that had anything to do with government in America was delegitimized, was criticized, was demonized, and was considered as somebody that was a joke. So, you know, we got a great framework that was laid down for us for the last 8 years of how to dissent within your rights and within the framework of the law, but still cause disruption and still cause problems and still not allow an agenda to move forward. So let's just take all that information they gave us and turn around and use it as a template for what we want to do in this new administration. Peace to the abolitionists.
Word. Just want to say real quickly that you can't solve a problem using the same mindset that created it. You just can't. We tried it your way. Everybody was the new black. Let us be the new black now. We tried it your way. Now try it ours. change your mind. As all the stocks dropped with an impending Trump presidency, one industry's stock value rose by 60% before finally settling in at around 40% and up. Private prisons. Stop screwing around in the denial river and think about that. And think about this. Abolition is a reason for a revolution, so we can finally know some peace. Peace.
Rise up, 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 rise up. Showtime. Just lift your eyes up. Let your wise rise up. See the signs of the times. If it's time, rise up, rise up. When death and hell